On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
Alright, I'm ready.
Okay, on.
Ken. Today I think we've got to tackle the age-old question that's dogged Forteans for decades. Ken, what is the most Fortean of all fruit? Well, that would be pears. Pears are the most Fortean of fruit. You show them a pear. This is what a pear looks like. Pears are the most Fortean of all the fruits. Why is that, Ken? Why is pears more Fortean than other fruits? The pear is the most Fortean of all fruits because sometimes we smell pears where there are no pears.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that was the most fructicological introduction we have ever had. Well done to all involved.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of On the Track. My name's John Downs, and I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and over there you can see his left elbow poking out as he sits on the sofa over there. You can see my old friend and colleague Richard Freeman, who is the zoological director of the CFZ. And he has something he really wants to talk about this time. Richard, recently we published the first English translation of a manuscript written by Boris Porshnev back in 1963 about yetis and other manbeasts in the former USSR. I'm very proud of it, and it was a concatenation not just of my work putting it together, but it was translated by Lars Thomas, it was edited by Dr. Chris Clark, and right in the beginning it was you who found it and managed to get hold of it in the first place. So Richard, first of all, how did you get hold of the manuscript?
Well, I found Porshnev's, I think, great grandnephew, and I'd completely forgotten how I found him because it's been quite a long time. I totally forgot how I got hold of his email. But he's living in the States, and I contacted him and said, "Look, we're trying to get hold of this manuscript, and the only one we can find is in Moscow Library, and they won't lend it to us." And he said he'd got an original first draft that we could have and translate.
Well, that was fantastic. It was a really good bit of detective work on your part. But you think we should be doing more stuff like this?
Yes, the thing that is rather a bee in my bonnet is translating foreign texts on cryptozoology into English and translating English books into other languages. I gave my permission to have my Orang Pendek book translated and published in Indonesian to a scientist called Dr. Hanwar the last time I was over in Sumatra. I don't know if anything came of it. I sent him the text. I don't know if anything ever came of it. But there's so many books that must have so much information in it that we never see, and vice versa. For example, Japan. There's a big interest in cryptozoology in Japan. They've done a number of expeditions to look for the Yeti. They're very interested in lake monsters. They've gone looking for lake monsters around the world and other things. So there must be multiple texts in Japanese that we've never seen, and information therein that we've never been privy to.
So Richard, is there a particular set of documents that you really want to get hold of, that you'd love us to be able to get the rights to republish? Your particular holy grail, as it were.
It would be the lifetime's worth of notes of Marie-Jeanne Koffmann, who died just last year, just short of 101. She never actually published a book. She published a number of articles, but never marshalled all her notes into book form. She has literally a lifetime of notes from the 1950s all the way up to the 1990s of her research and interviews and expedition notes from the Caucasus Mountains, where she was searching for the Almasty. And of course she was part of the Soviet Snowman Commission. And I was talking to my friend Christopher Kilian, the French cryptozoologist, and he's trying to get his hands on them as well. At the minute, there's I believe some Russian women have got a hold of them, being rather protective of them. I believe Christopher and his colleagues have got some of her notes, and these Russian women have got the others. We need to get hold of all of them, because I dread the thought of her life's work being lost and forgotten.
And of course we've got another project that we're well into the middle of at the moment. It's not a foreign translation, but it is getting hold of stuff that was otherwise completely forgotten and lost, with the work of Odette Chernin.
Yes, that's was absolutely brilliant, and sort of came out of the blue, but a whole unpublished book by her, and a bunch of notes. So that's going to be out either later this year or early next year, something like that.
I hope so, yes. Well, as regular viewers of this show will know, we are in the very early stages of putting together a project on the Japanese island of Iriomote, where it is alleged there is a mystery big cat, which we think is almost certainly going to be a clouded leopard. But because recently the whole speciation of the clouded leopard complex has taken on a new light, it will be very, very interesting, not just to show that yes, there is another population of clouded leopards, but which of the various clouded leopard species it eventually turns out to be. At the moment, Gwyn Palmer, Miss Guinevere, as Hennis the chicken always insists on calling her, is busy working on the data gathering that is necessary at the beginning of the project, and we have also been given some encouragement by our life president John Blashford Snell, who has also been to Iriomote and done some work there. And so the project is looking really rather interesting. How long it takes to come to fruition, I don't know. There are a lot of people within the CFZ who are fascinated by Japan, its history, its culture and its people. And one of these is Richard Freeman, who's here with me today. He's on the sofa, he's stroking Lilith the cat. So, Richard, obviously you will be going to Japan with the Iriomote expedition as and when it happens. But what other mystery animals are there in Japan? And what's the chances that you're going to manage to find one of them?
Well, one of the most ancient is the Sujinoko, or the flat snake, and it's mentioned in some of the earliest books ever written in Japan. Along with the Japanese dragon, it's the most ancient of the Japanese cryptids, and this is a sort of dorso-ventrally flattened snake. And in the old text, it was said to be able to speak and was fond of alcohol.
I think I've just discovered my spirit animal.
And I think they said it swore a lot as well.
You've got to catch one and bring it back to Wolseley so me and the Tsuchinoko can have a meaningful exchange of views.
But there are still sightings today of the Tsuchinoko, and it's supposed to be a very flat snake that can slide into crevices between rocks and things. And there's even a Tsuchinoko festival where they go out looking for this creature, and it's supposed to exist in the remotest parts of Japan, most undisturbed parts of the countryside. But there are still sightings in the modern times. I mean, when I wrote my book, The Great Yokai Encyclopedia, a few years back, there was a story about a guy who'd supposedly accidentally killed one whilst mowing a lawn. He actually hit it with a mower and killed it, and he didn't realise the importance of it and threw the body away, but his description was of this creature, the Tsuchinoko. Now, we shouldn't be too surprised by this, because there are other dorso-ventrally flattened reptiles, like the pancake tortoise of Africa, which is a tortoise that's, as its name suggests, is flattened like a pancake, so it can hide from predators in crevices. And we have the dab lizards, which can flatten themselves down as well to hide in crevices. So the precedent is there for reptiles being able to do this, and I think it's probably, from the description, it sounds rather like some sort of pit viper, because it's supposed to have this triangular head, and it's often depicted as having little horns as well, which could be the scales above the eyes that you get on some vipers, like the horn viper and others. They have these little raised scales that look like devil's horns.
Pit vipers are something I actually know something about, because when I was a boy in Hong Kong, there were two species of pit viper, one very common and one extremely rare, to be found there. Now, by the way, there's a third species of pit viper has been discovered from Hong Kong, but it was only discovered in Hong Kong much more recently, and it's a completely different story I'm not going to go into here. The commonest of the pit vipers was what was known then as the bamboo snake, and it was called the bamboo snake partly because it was bright green, just like the leaves of bamboo, and partly because that's where it liked to live. And it was the snake that the European residents were far more scared of than they were of anything else, despite the fact that the two krites and the two cobras were actually more venomous than the bamboo snake. But I think it was that the bamboo snake was just so completely ubiquitous that made it a creature that invoked such terror amongst the expat population.
Pit vipers earn their name from the facial pits they have. You can see them on their snout if you look at them head on. And what they are organs to detect heat. They're heat sensory organs, or heat sensory pits. So the snake can hunt in complete darkness. It can hunt warm-blooded prey like mammals and birds in the pitch black, because it can judge how far away they are and where they are due to the body heat, and it can follow them, which is a wonderful adaptation. For some reason you don't get them in Africa. They're widespread throughout Asia, and you get them in the Americas, but not in Africa. And not in Australia, where you don't get any kinds of vipers at all. You just get the front-fanged or fixed-fanged snakes.
I don't think I'd realised that rattlesnakes are pit vipers.
Yes, yes, definitely. If you look at a rattlesnake's snout, the actual pits are very large. You can see them very easily there with the naked eye.
Yeah, the picture that we showed a few minutes ago actually is of a rattlesnake rather than one of the Asian pit vipers, with which I'm far more familiar.
If you're looking at them side on, you might mistake it for a large nostril.
So, Richard, going back to the flat snake in Japan, what would be the difficulties in searching for it?
The main difficulty would be terrain. Japan is one of the most mountainous countries in the world. We think of Japan as being very modern and populous, but most of the population live in cities, because if you get out into the countryside, most of it is mountainous. And the Suzunoko is supposed to live only in the most remote and disturbed areas, so you would have to go out into the mountains to search for it, which would probably be the most difficult thing in looking for it, just the sheer terrain. And it's not a large animal, it's not like looking for a giant anaconda or something. We're talking about an animal just a few feet long.
So, are there a lot of unknown animals and cryptids in Japan?
Yes, yeah, there are quite a few. There's the Japanese wolf, which, well, there are actually two species of wolf on Japan. There was the dwarf wolf and the Hokkaido wolf, both of which are supposed to be extinct. The last one being killed around 1914. But there are sightings and even a photograph of dwarf wolves. So there's a possibility that the dwarf wolf of Japan is still around. A little bit like the Tasmanian wolf. It's a scenario not a million miles away from the Tasmanian wolf. There's the Japanese otter, which is supposed to be extinct, but might still be hanging on. There are several lake monsters in Japan. Most notable is Ishi in Lake Akita, which is supposed to be a long-necked serpentine creature in the typical mould, and there are several like that. And then there are legendary creatures like the kappa, which is a sort of water creature with a face like a monkey, the beak of a tortoise, the arms and legs of a frog, and the shell of a tortoise, which was supposed to drown people and then eat their entrails through their anus. Of course, there are Japanese dragons. There is Hybergon, which was a 5 foot tall ape-like creature that was seen around Mount Haibar in the 1970s. And they're just a smattering of them. You could do a whole series on the mystery animals of Japan.
Maybe we shall do that thing. But I know there's one mystery animal from a Japanese island, a subterranean mystery animal, which I know totally trumps all of them for being the weirdest. And I know you want to go and look for it.
The Senkaku mole. Senkaku is a flea speck of an island in Japanese waters. It's only about 3 miles across, and there was a type specimen of a mole collected there years ago, and until recently nobody had been back to check if this mole was still there. It was known from one specimen, and I've always wanted to go to this island and see if I could see the mole, but apparently some scientists have been back and classified the mole as vulnerable. It's still there. It's vulnerable rather than endangered, but I'd still like to go to the island to say that I've been to such a remote Japanese island, and I'd still like to see the mole.
Senkaku is one of those islands that is disputed between China and Japan. There are quite a lot of those, especially in the South China Sea. And just like you, Richard, I'd very much like to go and look at it, look for it. I don't know how mountainous the mountain is, or whether we'd be able to get a wheelchair in there, but if we can, I'm your boy.
I seem to remember that the island is very flat, because I looked it up on Google Earth once. It's a very flat island. So yeah, the Suzunoko, I think it's a real animal, and of course it's had the mythalization process done to it in the early days, and had all sorts of strange powers uh, ascribed to it, which of course it doesn't have, which is something that happens over and over again with animals. But yes, some sort of dorsoventrally flattened pit viper, I think, is living in Japan undiscovered.
And I don't think you can say fairer than that. Let's leave the subject of Japanese mystery animals for the moment, but I'm pretty sure that I can guarantee we'll be coming back to them very, very soon.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, wants me to remind you, always press the notification bell. Otherwise you won't be told when there's a new show to watch. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it? And ladies and gentlemen, that's about the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I want to say a big, big thank you to everybody involved, especially Richard. In fact, nearly all Richard, because this was another one of those episodes which Richard and I extemporised as we were going along. And I'm rather pleased with it. Japan is certainly an incredibly mysterious place, and there are all sorts of mysteries of a cryptozoological nature that we would love to go and sort out. So guys, so people with potential sponsorship, get in touch so we can go and do it. We'll be back on Wednesday with another show, which I'm not going to tell you what's in it because I haven't recorded it yet, but when I do, I'm sure it's going to be jolly. And I also want to say that we'll be back next Saturday, because next Saturday, 7 days' time, it'll be time for another episode of this remarkably peculiar little show. So, thank you for watching, and next Saturday at 3 o'clock, if you're there, I'll be seeing you.